Oh,
Hi, everyone. My name is Shelley Reed. I am the manager of the Legal Services National Technology Assistance Project, otherwise known as LSNTAP. That's how you'll hear it referred to the most often. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm here with Laura Quinn and Shanita. And I'm sorry, I should have practiced your name ahead of time, but I'm going to turn it over to Laura to introduce the session and talk a little bit about this group, and then we'll get into the presentation.
absolutely. I'm really excited to be here and to be working with LSN Tap and Shelley to facilitate this, what's going to be an ongoing group. So a group specifically dedicated to thinking about the creation, maintenance, other things related to legal content. There's a lot of stuff to think about, as I'm sure you all know, as you're working on it. So to bring all of us who know a lot about it together to share what we know and learn from each other. So this is, if anything, going to be more kind of upfront content than some of this, as I wanted to just make sure that it seemed super compelling and get people here for a first session. But it may be for future sessions that we have very little or no presentation, and we are just discussing things that are of interest to each of us. But today we are taking on the idea, kind of writ large, and I know this is a large topic, of updating content. So obviously it's fun and exciting to write new content. It becomes a little less exciting, especially for our stakeholders, to update content. I'm going to just briefly talk about what a possible ideal process would look like. And then we are lucky to have Shanita with us from Illinois Legal Aid Online, ILEO, to talk about some of what they're doing. And then we have tons of time. We've got about half an hour where we're going to kick around questions and what you're doing and discussion on this topic. As we get underway, I would love to do introductions. And in fact, I'm excited. We have more than 40 people sign up for this. And I'm like, I don't know if we could do a discussion with more than 40 people. So at least at the moment, we've only got 12. And that means that we definitely can each introduce ourselves. So I'd love to start out if we could each just say maybe your name, what organization you're with, maybe just like in one sentence, what you are, kind of one thing you'd be interested in. And this whole idea of um, a group with fellow content managers, what you'd be interested most in talking about, hearing, things like that. I will kick us off. I am Laura Quinn. I am a consultant specializing in websites for nonprofits, including content and content processes. And I'm just excited to meet all of you and to hear what you're doing. And I'm gonna hand it, if we could, so I think many of you can see each other. I'll worry about it when we run out of people you can see. If you could introduce yourself and then just pass it to somebody else. I'm gonna pass it to Shanita.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, I'm Chinita Chintaplin McClelland. I'm the legal content director with Illinois Legal Aid Online. And I'm excited to learn more about what everyone is doing with content and get great ideas. It is definitely a work in progress for us. Excited to share those ideas and learn more. I will turn it over to, let's see, a name I recognize, Nicole Minnis, my colleague.
Hi, everyone. Apologies for no video. I am making lunch. But I am the newest legal content manager at ILEO. and I am excited to see how other people do things. I'm still getting to learn how Aleo is doing things and trying to slot in as fast as I can, but I'm looking forward to meeting others in this community. And I'll pass it to my colleague Yaima.
Thanks, Nicole. Hi, everyone. My name is Yaima Hegstrom. I'm also from ILEO. I'm one of the legal content managers. I've been with ILEO for about 3 years now. Besides managing some legal content areas, I also manage our Spanish side of the website. And I'm just really interested in learning what everyone else is doing for like translation stuff and best practices. And I will pass it to, let's see, Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Harris. I am the content manager at Ohio Legal Help. I've been at Ohio Legal Help for like 9 years, which is super messed up. I've known Laura for all of that. But I'm excited. I'm honestly just excited because when I started doing this job, there were like 2 other people who did this job, and no one, we were all just kind of like, we're doing something, I don't know. So I'm excited about the idea of having like consensus and community for this role specifically.
Let's pass it to Gerson. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah, good afternoon or good morning, I guess, depending on where you are. I'm Gerson Sorto, the Director of Legal Services here at Neighborhood Legal Services of Los Angeles County. And we've gone through a few iterations of our website, and actually over the summer engaged some consultants to give us a lot of feedback related to how we can make improvements. And we're now just getting started with a committee to kind of go through that. We have a communication and developments team, but they're, like all of us, often spread thin. We don't have a dedicated website or content manager, and really eager to learn from you all how the structure is for those of you that have that position. And if any of you don't, how we distribute that role in a way that's sustainable, but also ensures, high quality content on our website regularly. But I appreciate the opportunity to meet you all. I will popcorn it over to Pat. Have you gone, Pat?
I have not. Thank you, Jessalyn. I am Pat Malone. I am with the Pro Bono Net's New York programs. I work as their legal director. And I am curious about how folks recruit legal experts. We can do the writing and the plain language editing, but we don't have a lot of in-house, in-depth knowledge about New York civil law. And then also interested in how folks are keeping up with the kind of rapidly changing and uncertain legal information. And I will hand it over to Danielle, please.
Hi, I'm Danielle Rebar. I'm with the Northwest Justice Project in Washington State, and I'm the website manager for our Washington Law Help site. I'm not an attorney, so I don't actually create the content, but I work with a team of attorneys who do. And I think several of them may have signed up for this group, but they're all at a conference today. So I'm interested in more of like the workflow and processes, how to keep our translations up to date. We have we launched a new website in May on the Drupal CMS. So we're all kind of getting used to managing content now within the CMS, and that's new for us. We were on the Law Help template platform before this, so we were managing everything through like Word documents before, and so I'm interested to learn from you all about best practices for our team and how I can make streamline things for our attorneys. And also we have a huge content library, as most of you do, and we're always struggling on how to keep it up to date. So glad to be here. Has everybody gone? Holly, have you introduced yourself?
I have not yet. Hi, everyone. I'm Holly Yates. I'm the Director of Development at the Legal Aid Society of Eastern Virginia. I've been with the SEV for almost 10 years now. I was previously a managing attorney there until I switched into this role. And I think the thing I'm most interested in is, who's doing this work at your organizations and sort of what do your teams look like? I'm very self-taught in all the areas outside of direct legal services. So I'm always interested because I think a lot of times you can't find out on people's websites, who's on your development team, what are those, how many people are helping you behind the scenes? And then, sort of what are the roles and responsibilities and how do you figure out who's responsible for this type of work? And I'll pass it to Jay.
Thanks, Holly. My name is Jay Collier. I'm Technical Project Manager with 603 Legal Aid and am managing the migration of 603 LA's website to a new content management system and seeking to find appropriate engineering for workflow for the content experts and also the QA editors within the organization. So I'm really interested in finding that sweet spot between having enough technology to help simplify the process for people, yet not having so much that there's a lot of buttons to click and people aren't as motivated to do the hard work of periodically updating content. And I think,
Brandy.
Sean, did you introduce yourself?
I did not. I'm Sean Morrow from North Penn Legal Services in Pennsylvania. We're actually in the process of just building out a second website. We have our main website, but we're planning a connected website that will specifically focus on housing legal issues. That we've been gathering information and brainstorming about like the best way to set that up. It'll be a rewarding experience for anybody that's viewing it. So I'm happy to get information and ideas and brainstorm with this group. And I think I missed the first couple of people, so I have no idea if there's anybody else that needs to go.
I believe Brandy may.
I think I'm the very last one. I'm sorry, next time I'll have my camera together to be able to use my camera, but I'm going to miss that part today. I apologize. I'm Brandy Nee, but I'm the Community Engagement Specialist for the Harris County Office of Managed Assigned Counsel. I actually am experienced in or trained or educated in social work and community engagement, but also am in charge of our website content and social media content for our office. And so I'm always trying to learn from people who really specialize in those things. We are a startup office, and over the last 5 years, when they made our website, we had zero content because we were brand new, and now we have tons and tons and tons of content that does not fit into the framework that they started us with. So we're in the middle of a website redesign too, and so already you guys have said so many things that make me go, oh yes, we need to be sure about that and those things. So I can't wait to hear what I can learn from all of you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, all of you, for to sharing with each other. I'm really excited for this to be really a community of people who are all learning from each other. That being said, we've got about maybe 20 minutes of presentation to just kind of ground ourselves in our topic for today, which is the idea of updating content. And I'm going to talk through kind of one kind of ideal process if you were, and hardly anybody is, starting from scratch on what you're doing in terms of basically writing all your content right now. So hang on just a second and let me share my screen. So certainly you want to, I'm going to go fly through these. Certainly you want to figure out who's in charge. So who's in charge of the content of each specific page, who else is involved. When you post something, ideally, you want to define when it should next be reviewed. So like and you could also obviously go back through everything, but then it becomes more tedious. Define when it will go out of date. So maybe should be reviewed in a few months or 6 months, or maybe it's fairly evergreen. So it could be 2 years from now before it needs legal review. And then probably put a reviewer on it, or at least a review role. You could always swap one person over to another. What we're looking at is simply an Airtable. This could be done in a spreadsheet, possibly could be done in a CMS, in the content management system CMS you're using. And then here's where it gets more into the idea of here's a possible thing, which, there's lots of ways to go about this. But so the idea of having a reviewer and a date is so that you can batch them up and send a reviewer a few articles and say, hey, can you review these? The reviewer looks at each assigned article. And then this is the most important part of this process flow, is that either they can simply reset it and say, hey, it looks good, new date. They can suggest small tweaks, and that gets easily done and is fixed, or it's simply kicked out of the queue. So there's a whole other process of some sort to update articles. My experience is if you hold up everything, if you hold up the articles that are good and just need small tweaks to also do everything that needs to be updated, then you get bogged down. So basically you have this whole other queue for actual work for articles that need to be updated. Also the possibility that the article is no longer, it's so bad it's not useful, or it's no longer needed, and then you can archive. All right, so I wanted to just provide a high-level look at what we're talking about when we talk about updates. And now we're going to go over to Shanita for her to talk about what it actually looks like in her real world.
Great, thank you. Let me see. Okay. Y'all see the Aleo slide? Perfect. Okay, just making sure. All right, so I am Shanita Chintaplin-McClelland. I'm the legal content director with Illinois Legal Aid Online. We like to call it Aleo. And yeah, be talking about how we maintain content. And so as part of that, we'll talk about the people who do the content maintenance and who in our community we partner with and collaborate with to maintain our content, the tools that we use to do this, and then the workflow that we utilize. I do want to emphasize for us, it is an ongoing, continuous process of improvement. It is a work in progress. We are constantly changing and updating, and we feel like that sort of ability to just make these changes and improve things as we go along is super important to our process. All right, so staff. Aleo has 22 staff members, all of whom work on our site. We have no other programs outside of the website, but we do have different programs within that all do different parts. So for instance, we have a product team that works on technical projects and processes, and then like a community engagement team that goes out and works. We have community navigators that work with people in the community. But on the legal content team, there are 4 legal content managers, 3 of whom are here today. The content director, that's me. I also do administrative work. We have a content manager who works with attorney volunteers, Nicole. A content manager that works with our interns and fellows. who is Tara, and then content manager who also works on our Spanish site, which is Yema. These 4 content managers divide up all of the content that's on our site. I think we have about 10 different content areas, and each of us have certain sections that are our pieces of content. So we are responsible for maintenance, for deciding when there's a law change, of triaging it, how important it is, where does it go, that sort of thing. We also have 2 attorneys that work on our easy forms, which is kind of like a TurboTax, but for legal forms. And then we have 1 non-attorney project manager who helps us with all of our grants and projects and makes sure that we get things done on time. He also does a variety of other things, such as our social media accounts and our newsletters. Our volunteers are a very important part of our process. And we have kind of 3 distinct programs there, or areas. One is our legal content volunteer program. So this is a program where there's actually 2 different subgroups. We have pro bono attorneys and law firms that want to help us review content and also in some way are organized or involved with the Aleo. They may donate money. They may sponsor different things. And then we have the legal aid component. And these are our subject matter experts. These are people who practice in these areas that do this work day in and day out. And for for some of them, and we're working to build these relationships more, we have what we call the gateway connection. So this is a person that Nicole meets with every 6 to 8 weeks. And we go through content that we need help with if we know that there's a program in that legal aid organization that does this work. And they then can connect us and they talk to their staff about helping us review this content. We are trying to build these relationships with a lot of the larger legal aid organizations in Illinois, and we find that it's very helpful. It's also very helpful to find out what content we're missing on the site. Like they can tell us, hey, we're getting a lot of calls about this, we're getting a lot of cases about this. Can you help us with developing content that addresses that on the site? One thing that we do with legal aid that has been really fun and successful are content review parties. So this is where we go to their office, we bring pizza, snacks, adult beverages if they want it and after certain hours, and a lot of raffle prizes and swag. And we say, here, help us review. Everybody brings a laptop. We have everything on Google Docs and folders and ready. And the very first party we did a few years ago was with Legal Aid Chicago. And I think in 3 hours, we got 75 pieces of content reviewed, which was incredible and very much needed. And so, and they enjoyed it. They got to all sit in one room together and talk and ask each other questions like, hey, I know about this paragraph, but this one, oh, didn't you just do a case about this recently? And have that sort of conversation. And so those are really popular. We also host virtual events and challenges that kind of coincide with like Pro Bono Month or National Volunteer Month. And the key to those, we feel, are the raffle prizes. People really, really love raffle prizes. Sorry, excuse me. I had a cold a couple weeks ago, and so now I have that cough that lasts a year after. Moving on to our interns and fellows program. So we have year-round interns and fellows that work with us at Aleo. So we have interns that are law students. They're either paid by Aleo, paid by their school or an organization that pays through their school, or they are externs that receive credit. We do not have unpaid interns as a matter of equity. We do have, though, as something new that we're doing, a short unpaid project that you can pick up through either your law school or through Paladin. And we have a lot of students from other states outside of Illinois that are, wanting to pick up these projects and learn a little bit more about Illinois law. So it's been great. But all of these programs, in addition to providing us with a lot of much needed help during the year, it also is a pipeline to our Young Professionals Board and our Board of Directors. And our interns and our fellows, a lot of them do stay in touch. They do become part of these organizations, and it's great, you know, to see them stay involved with Aleo throughout the years. And finally, our community, our legal aid community in Illinois, which I think is fantastic. We have many different organizations that we belong to, and that they're great sounding boards for what needs to be done, what information is missing. We have a stakeholder group for our organization. It's 10 different Illinois legal aid organizations or government agencies. We meet quarterly. You know, we talk about what they're seeing in the community, what help we can give them, what help they can give us. And it's been a great touch point with those organizations. Aleo also hosts 9 discussion groups within Illinois. So we have one on family law, on AI, different things like that. So there's always one legal content manager or a staff member that works with a subject matter expert in the community, and they co-facilitate these groups. And then finally, the Administrative Office of the Illinois Courts have 14 different form groups in Illinois, and they produce standardized forms for the state. And Aleo has a representative on every committee. So that's been great for us to also learn about law changes and stay in touch with how people are using forms that are on our site and how best to explain them in our accompanying how-tos or information. All right, what tools do we use? So we really like the collaborative tools. So we have Google Workspace at Aleo. So we're constantly using Google Docs, Google Sheets. We use Tableau. The key is easy to use, easy to change, easy to edit, right? If it's going to take you 3 clicks to change something, no one's going to do that. So we try and make it as easy to use as possible. That's for staff and for our subject matter experts and everybody else in the community as well. We use a Jira board to keep track of tasks that come in and tasks that we give to interns and fellows, and then also with our subject matter experts where they are in the process, right? We have a piece of content, we say, hey, we need to find somebody to review this, who's an expert. Who have we talked to? Who has said no? Who has said yes? Things like that. And then subscriptions. We have a bunch of different ones, and I've listed a few here. Screaming Frog is great for broken links. That's always been something that we've struggled with. Legiscan for a legislative tracker, Grammarly, things like that. All right. Workflows. All right, obviously, so the goals that we have, we want the information to be accurate and complete, right? It's better to have no information than inaccurate information on the site. We aim for it to be plain language, relevant to our users, and adheres to both our English and Spanish style guides. We want the body of content to be reasonable to maintain, given staffing levels. So 2 attorneys, right? The different staffing level, it's going to be different than 12 attorneys. And we always try and work towards that magic number where things are reasonable and not overwhelming. And then also related to that is access to subject matter experts. You know, if you have certain topics, and we have content that we struggle with finding, people who say that they are, they feel like they have the expertise to review this, then there might be a discussion about whether or not that content, we need to keep it up, right? If we can't have it reviewed. We aim for content to be reviewed every year by SMEs. I think right now we're sitting at between 1 to 2 years on our average. But the goal is once every year. And if we know something is changing faster, like immigration, we try and do that even more frequently. We try and make the universe of information easily reviewable and with no duplication. So for our SMEs, we found that we we're moving to this new content model, which an example of it on our site is our protection from abuse section. That if you have everything on like one page and you have it in a certain order, it's much easier and faster for them to go through, and they're not going to do this. Oh, wait, did we talk about this? Oh, I don't know. It might be someplace else, but I'm going to stick it in here. And then you end up having duplicate content in different pieces, and that ends up being a nightmare to maintain. And so moving things into a different format to make it easy for the SMEs has been useful for us. Like I know we redid our, for instance, child support content, which was like 40 something pieces of content, and we moved it into the new format, and the SME was able to remove everything in 2.5 hours, which made us happy and made them happy, and everything is what it needs to be on the site. And so that is a definite goal for us to make things as easy as possible for our SMEs.
Peter, just a question about that. So is that a format that's directed at the SMEs and their updates, or that's something that you're doing for various reasons and is actually public to all your web users?
It's public to all of our web users, but we're making that an intentional goal, an intentional factor, right? In how we end up doing things is not just, people using this, the readability and ease of use in that respect, but also these other factors to prioritize those. Law changes are quickly incorporated, and then finally, staff development and wellness are prioritized. This work it can be exhausting, and it I think is very there's a chance for burnout in a lot of different ways. You just finished a piece of content, the law changes, great, change it all up. I think too, we have a lot of friends and colleagues who can unplug for mental health, for wellness from the news. But in this role, you can't really do that. You've got to be able to keep up with what's going on and know everything going on. And so it does, and it can become very overwhelming. So we try and prioritize wellness and staff development. Like in the summer, we had Summer Friday, so every other Friday we had off, and we try and be very flexible with work schedules and time, and give people space for wellness activities to be able to, do this marathon. All right, workflow processes. So how we find out about law changes. Subject matter experts, huge. Illinois Law Tracker, we use Legiscan to track legislative changes. We have a giant spreadsheet that lists all of the laws that were changed in the past legislative session in Illinois. They meet once a year. And then I go through and categorize what part of the site, like what category, and then it gets assigned to a legal content manager or an intern to review. So we do look at every law change every year. We'll also look at executive orders, proclamations, memoranda as well. Webinars, CLE, the Chicago Bar Foundation in Illinois gives any legal aid organization access to all the CLEs that they offer. So that has been fantastic and a great way for us to keep up with things. Email listservs and Aleo discussion groups. News and social media has also lately been one way we've kind of given each other the heads up on things. We have Slack at Aleo, and we have a specific Slack channel we call Brewing, where we'll just put in articles that we've seen or bits and that, just so that people can see what's kind of coming up and keep an eye on it. And then we have a lot of committees, legal aid committees or government committees in Illinois that we are members of that also are great at keeping us updated. All right. Other factors to our process, working towards this magic number of maintainable content. Hard. When I started with Aleo 4 years ago, we had 1,900. We're down to 1,300 now, and we're still trying to consolidate. But we had 2 different events we called the Culling, which I actually heard about. I think someone in Georgia did. I learned about it at a ITC a few years ago, but we, looked at the 200 or 300 pieces of content that was the least viewed on our site. We had staff give input. We looked at other sources that had that information, and then we just started archiving, and redirecting, things like that. And then our revamp process that we're going through right now, where we're consolidating different articles into common questions, and trying to organize things more. So we don't know what the magic number is, but we're just trying to reduce until we kind of feel comfortable at that point. We are incorporating AI into our work. First drafts, asking it, hey, what am I missing? What do people want to know? That's not in here. And using that to kind of help with the drafting process. But of course, at the end, we still make sure that everything is legally correct. We do staff content focus weeks or days. They used to be like one day every few months, and now all of Aleo, third week of every month, we have a focus week, so there's no internal meetings, and we try and schedule any externals outside of that so that we have uninterrupted concentration time. And that has been helpful for getting the content stuff done, because a lot of times, right, especially when you're having to work with other people outside of the organization, like for interns or subject matter experts, sometimes that part of the job, is you've got a lot going on, you've got to take care of it, and so there's not the concentration time that we need. And then, yeah, we have Slack for communications. Do we have different channels where you talk about different issues going on in our work and what we're seeing? We keep all of our content, a list of our content, on a Google Sheet. And for some people, I know, they're like, oh, what about Tableau or Smartsheet? So, yeah, however you want it. But the key is, right, easy to use, edit, collaborate. We can still pull the most up-to-date version or whatever in our CMS or Drupal CMS that gives us a report. But if you have to click edit here and you have to click here and click here, then it's just not going to be as helpful. And being able to tag colleagues into different fields has been super helpful. We could be a Google Sheet of all the laws passed in that legislative session and our review of that, and then the Jira board to keep track of team tasks, interns, and fellow tasks, and SME requests. And then finally, information for the public. So what do we show the public about our maintenance work? So we list a last review date. So this is the date that a subject matter expert last reviewed it, and a last revised date, which is the last time somebody at Aleo made any sort of substantive review. And then what happens is anything that we have marked in that, it gets triggered, and there is an e-update that goes out every Tuesday that lists then all of the content that has been updated in the past week, so people can keep track of what's changed. We do offer on the site an explanation of what these dates mean and why they're important to people. And then also just a general disclaimer about, this is legal information, not legal advice, that sort of thing. And then finally, something somewhat newer, we have a banner on some content, like our immigration content, and it's just kind of a warning that this information is quickly changing, and we are trying our best to keep up with all the changes. But, sometimes it's just very difficult. And so we just wanted to give people that warning, that information. There's a lot of misinformation, right, that is out now. And we try very much to have Aleo be a known source of where you can get reliable information. And we want to maintain that trust and not promise anything that I think that we cannot reasonably maintain. All right. Well, that is it for me. I have my name and my email address. I'm happy to answer questions. If you guys want to have like our teams meet and talk and talk about like, hey, this person is does this on our site, and this person we've got a counterpart on this for this other site, we would love to meet, and talk and learn more about different things people are doing so that we can improve.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. That was really interesting. And I'd love to, if people are, oh, there are still a bunch of people back on camera. I thought that a lot of people had turned them off. If you're willing to come back on camera, so those certainly cameras are optional, just to kind of have a larger group conversation. And in fact, we've got a great question which segues from the end of Shanita's content into kind of a larger discussion. Pat has asked in the chat, wondering if other sites are offering warnings about things that are quickly changing, for instance. She has done the same for articles linking to any federal websites. Yes, which they seem like things come down every day. Anybody else doing things in that realm or feelings about that?
Yeah, we do that. So we do it a lot with just very specific. We don't have like whole categories where we're doing it, but like TPS, student loans, stuff that's like actively being litigated. We will do that, and kind of depending on what's going on, we might provide more or less information about like why this thing might be changing. When we might have more information. Again, it's all very case by case.
Anybody else? Great. And I'm interested in, so that was super interesting to hear what the team was doing at Aleo, but obviously it's a very large team. And I'm interested in both your thoughts, Shanita, and other people's thoughts. In fact, maybe everybody could put some thoughts in the chat. So, and in fact, you didn't talk about specifically about the part that was updates. It's all, you know, a part, that's all part of it. So I'm going to ask a question to everyone. So if you had to put a number on how much of the content teams, whatever content team might mean to you, time should be put to new content compared to how much time should be put to updating content, what percentage would you should be put to updating content? Give me a number in the chat. I'm curious as to what people think. Is that 50-50? Is that dramatically less for updating content? So while people are typing things in, Shanita, I'm curious on your thoughts. What would you say to that?
I mean, for us, I think it would be the majority is maintenance. We want to make sure that that information's up to date. But given the wide variety of things happening in our world today, some of those things have to also be addressed. So.
Yep, absolutely. Wow, we're going to have a point counterpoint coming up from Danielle and Rachel, two very experienced content managers here.
Who I feel like,
Danielle, you want to talk a little bit about 80% maintenance and why that makes sense to you?
Yeah, well, we have a very large content library already, and we went through a culling process over the last, it took us like 4 years or 5 years to rework all of our existing content into like new plain language and into our new content types for our website redesign. And I think we're down to about 170 guides and issue pages is what we're calling them. And so like we get a lot of requests for new content, but given the size of our team and our capacity, we've really had to become very choosy about what new content we're creating. And because we just barely have enough time to kind of keep up to date what we already have. And so that's kind of where we're at with that.
Fantastic. Rachel, can you talk a little bit about 35%?
yes. So basically for us, we do not have a very large content library. All of our content, the oldest thing that possibly exists on my website is from 2019. And so we are in a situation where, because our organization was born out of basically starting from total scratch relatively recently, that obviously not as much as we have focused on maybe in like the first 2 or 3 years of starting out, when we were really like, oh, we need to like be developing stuff all the time. We have slowed down in that a little bit. But for us, one thing that we found out, so like I love, like, so again, and full transparency, so like I worked with Laura when we made that decision and started doing that. And we sat down, we had these conversations saying like, okay, well, like we should decide like how often we review these things, and how do we know how much this law is going to change? In an interesting turn of events, the things that I would say we have the most robust information about on our site, which is like domestic relations, housing, eviction, those things have not changed. Like there have really not been substantial changes. Sometimes there are changes. Oftentimes it's things that are like administrative, where it's like every 3 years this schedule updates and that changes how this thing is done. There have obviously been legislative changes. We usually have a pretty long runway on that. So it's like when the law gets passed, there's 90 days before it's implemented. We have a really small team. Our content team is me and a half-time person. And that's it. And so like in 90 days, for the most part, we can get things reviewed by the subject matter experts. The other thing that I've noticed that happens is sometimes that when the law changes, we don't really know what that's going to look like until it's happened for a while. So often, because we're really focused on like, this is how this process works on the ground, we can't even write something until something's been in effect for 6 months. So it's interesting because I again am very like, oh, I want to process and I want to say how often we update each thing and how often everything needs to be reviewed. But like in practicality, that's just not what it ended up happening for us. But yeah, I mean, that is all to say that like we do a lot of revisiting. The other thing I wanted to shout out was Sean's note, or Jay's note, about monitoring interest in different content. So our content team is 1.5 people. At some point, we thought, oh, we need more content people. One of the content people we hired has become almost completely a data person. And so a lot of her work is looking at data to inform the content strategy. And a lot of the revisions that we end up doing to content are not necessarily because there has been changes in the law, but because we've realized, oh, we can update this content to functionally serve our users, or make it easier for users to find stuff like that.
Actually, can you say a little more about that? And then I'm interested in hearing from other people as well. Like, in what ways does your data inform, like what kinds of data do you use to inform what should be updated?
So much. So things like, okay, these are 2 relatively analogous areas of law, but like we're getting way more traffic to this page than we are to this page. And why is that? So I would say, even for example, like recently we were like, we're getting a lot of traffic to dissolution, which is a different pathway to terminate your marriage than divorce in Ohio, even though dissolutions are not necessarily the majority of cases. It's about 50-50, right? So then looking at it and realize like, oh, we're kind of cannibalizing this because we separated out like with kids and without kids, and realizing like, oh, we can do work to like both make this potentially more functional for our users, but also stop like just reevaluating assumptions that we made, earlier on, right? So we do that. We also she does a lot of keyword research, and kind of, we will say, okay, let's pick an area where, you know, let's pick something that we're doing really well in, that's like our most accessed area, and see if like we can make tweaks, and if there's any change or like from those tweaks, or look at things that are really low performing and see if we can make changes. And like it's a very fiddly art, not a science. I don't have a whole lot of actionable tips, but we're doing a lot of data and trying to like understand what the new AI search means for us and how that all is going to work.
Yep, absolutely. Anybody else have thoughts in regard to Jay's questions about who monitors search terms to understand? I'm especially interested as it informs updates. So search terms for updates or other data for updates. So things other than changes to the law.
I can add something to that question. We downloaded 3 years of Google search terms. There were about 1,000 different terms that were used, some multiple times, and fed that into ChatGPT and asked to have similar search terms or search queries combined, and then using the number of times that each one was used to yield for us the top 100 queries over the past 3 years. And then we had ChatGPT turn those into question format so we could use them as FAQs. But it was also just really interesting that some of the areas that some of the SMEs were really interested in really had 0.01% search terms. And it was interesting to distinguish that from page views, because the search terms may indeed have been from people that hadn't been to the website, but they were much more broadly generalizable to the full audience. And the page views were dissonant. And as we looked at the source, the organic sources, some of them had a lot of hits because another organization was pointing to that particular page as a reference. So it wasn't necessarily correlated with general potential client interest. So the ChatGPT saved looking through 1,000 search terms and trying to make sense of them. And I'm sure it was imperfect, but it was very helpful to narrow it down.
Absolutely. I'm just going to throw one thing in myself, and then I think I saw Danielle unmute to say something. But just to throw out, in addition to Jay's use of ChatGPT there, I've done a lot of looking at search engine tools like Answer the Public or Moz or stuff like that to pull what people are searching on. And I've just very recently been experimenting instead with using ChatGPT directly or Claude directly to say, what are people searching on? And having a lot of very good, and they correspond with each other, to be able to say, what are people searching on? And also and please include also information about what other legal aid firms are, just legal aid organizations, but make it specific to this state. And they seem like they are very high quality. It's very high quality proxy user data consistent with what you get from Google search terms, which is interesting. All right, Danielle, if I was right in thinking that you wanted to speak, maybe a last thought on that before.
Oh, yeah. So on our news site, we borrowed some technology that we saw on the People's Law site of the Canadian website about collecting feedback on each of our issue and guide pages. And so now there's like an open-ended feedback collector at the bottom of every resource. And surprisingly, we are getting tons of feedback. And one of our team members is like feeding it automatically into a smart sheet now, and our editors are all taking a look at that, and it has led to a whole myriad of both substantive and stylistic updates that we've been making to content. So that's was kind of, we knew we would get some feedback, but we didn't really understand we were going to get that much feedback. And so it's been a great way for us to help improve content on our site. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
All right, in the last 4 minutes, I'd love to just, I'd love to learn a little bit from you to inform the next sessions. Can you each do me a favor and enter, and actually if you can do these, just hit return after each of them and then I can read them. One thing you found useful about this session? One thing you wish we'd do differently in future sessions? And possibly one topic, and then third, one topic you could imagine us covering in a future session. So I'm going to enter those into the chat. One thing useful. Oops, sorry, let me put those all in the same thing. Useful, one thing to see differently. Fabulous. People typing. All right. You've got 30 seconds to wrap up what you are typing, because I don't want to make anybody stay after, and I want to make sure that I do a close. So in fact, I will do a close while you are typing. Thank you so much for coming. I'm super excited by this fabulous start to our new community here. I hope to see you in our next session, which they're the third Thursday. Is that correct, Shelley?
That is correct.
It's great. So
Third
they're the
Thursday at
third
1 p.m.
Third Thursday of the month at 1 p.m. Eastern. We will have them be thematic, but they may or may not, depending on what we decide as a community, have actual presentations. There's a lot of knowledge in this community. So we may just learn from each other. Shelley, is the chat going to stick around, or do I need to furiously try to do something with these chat questions?
We get a chat transcript.
Fantastic.
So
Thank
I
you.
can send that to you.
Terrific. Please do submit your chat before you go. Yeah, absolutely. I hope to see you another of these soon. Great to see so many familiar faces.
Thank you all.